After 1 week, one game, all anybody around the national landscape of college football wants to talk about is Colorado, Colorado, Colorado. Believe it or not, they're going to have an opponent on Saturday instead of it all being about the Buffs. Yes, that's right. Nebraska is going to renew their rivalry with Colorado. What does Big Red Nation have to do to derail this hype train that is Colorado football?
From LA to Piscataway, all Big Ten all year long. This is Big Ten 10.
This is going to be an interesting test, to say the least, for Matt Rhule and the Nebraska Cornhuskers, especially in the lead up to this game. This is kind of a rarefied air situation in game 2 of the Matt Rhule era. Having this much hype and this much attention kind of behind this game, Deion Sanders' home debut at Folsom Field. Here are kind of two things that Matt Rhule can kind of use in the lead up to this game before they even get to Boulder, before they even kick this thing off, right? Number one, you need to keep your kids focused. You need to try to tune out this outside noise and keep it in-house, in the building, so to speak. This is going to be a very interesting test for both these kids. How does this personnel on the field stay focused with all this hype? And you know Colorado, what they're going to do. They're going to talk a lot. They're going to be hyping this thing up quite a little bit. Nebraska, you need to take the other approach. You need to keep this thing in-house and keep that quiet confidence, so to speak, in-house as well. Number two, you got to use this as motivation, I think, because Matt Rhule can easily say inside of his locker room, all anybody wants to talk about is Colorado. They don't care about you. Nobody is going to give you any attention whatsoever. Go out there and prove them wrong. Prove them that this was just a one-game fluke over there at Colorado. So those are things that the Huskers can kind of do in the lead-up to this football game. One more thing I want to touch on before I really get into the X's and O's of this football game. Boy, an 0-2 start, I think, would heighten the volume, so to speak, of the doubters of Matt Rhule early on, even though I don't think an 0-2 start is the worst thing in the world, because Minnesota and Colorado, I think, are good, solid to good football teams, and you still got, it would still only be one conference loss. You still got a lot of games in front of you, right? So I don't think it would be the end of the world. The sky wouldn't be falling, but you have to imagine those doubters around Big Red Nation would start to get a little bit louder following an 0-2 start. All right, let's talk about football. Colorado put up 45 points against a ranked TCU team week number 1. And I think one thing that I learned when I saw Colorado on tape in this one is they've got really good skill players on the perimeter, guys that can get out in space and make some plays, like Travis Hunter, the great two-way player, Dylan Edwards, the true freshman, Xavier Weaver, Jimmy Horn, a lot of those guys over 100 yards. And of course, the drink is stirred by Shedeur Sanders. I think where Shedeur Sanders really excels is when he's able to make good decisions and quick decisions, especially in this passing game. Get the ball out to his playmakers, let them make plays in space. I think Colorado has really structured their offense really well in taking advantage of that and taking advantage of the personnel that they indeed have on the football field. Colorado also excels in tempo. This is an up-tempo offense that wants to play with speed and wants to play with confidence, putting multiple positive plays together. That's what makes an up-tempo offense really good. For Nebraska, the first key that I want to focus in on them is you need to disrupt that tempo. It's as simple as an incomplete pass, rushing the passer, Shedeur Sanders, throwing the football away. You need to disrupt those multiple consecutive positive plays in a row, whether it's Colorado running the football or some short passes, maybe passes down the field as well. You need to find a way to disrupt that tempo, because when I look back at that TCU game, they were able to get it going early, and they were able to kind of keep it going and keep that momentum going and keep that confidence going on the offensive side of the ball. Nebraska needs to come out, and I would say within the first 3 drives, they need to force a punt, right? They need to disrupt this Colorado offense early in this football game to get them out of their rhythm. That's the whole approach, I think, when you face an up-tempo offense like you have in Colorado. Here's the thing. I thought Nebraska covered pretty well in their season opener against Minnesota, right? And Minnesota tried the deep shots a couple of times, and Nebraska seemed like they were in the hip pocket of these Golden Gopher wide receivers every single time. So I think it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge. I think there's more speed and explosiveness on the perimeter for Colorado than there was for Minnesota right out the gate. But I think this is, and to kind of look at it on the flip side, I think Colorado is going to have a little bit of a more difficult time creating separation against the Nebraska defensive backs than TCU. We don't know what TCU is. We know they've lost a lot. We don't know how good or bad they are in the defensive side of the ball. That's what's crazy to me about this week one overreaction hype train that is Colorado. TCU could be one of the very worst defenses in all of college football. And here we are crowning Colorado already. Now Nebraska kind of comes in. They've proved that they at least have improved now with Tony White in this defensive scheme. Very curious to see how these matchups are going to go on the defensive side of the ball. If they can get Nick Henrich back, I think that would be another big step in the right direction for Nebraska, because you need as many sure tacklers as you can. When Colorado wants to get their players in space, I especially look at a guy like Dylan Edwards that was able to catch kind of shorter passes, make a couple of guys miss, and take it to the house. That's another big key for this Husker defense. You need to make tackles in space. It needs to be a one and done a lot of the time on the defensive side of the football, because if Colorado is able to get their guys in space with 5 yards to 10 yards separation, they break one tackle, they break two, all of a sudden that's a 30, 40, 50-yard gain down the field. Wrapping these guys up and bringing them down in space is going to be huge, and maybe not having so much separation that there was in the TCU game. That's maybe one of the biggest keys for me on defense for Nebraska. If they can kind of keep everything in front of them, right? We know, there's good skill players, there's good speed on the perimeter, but if they can make those sure tackles right off the gate and not miss a lot of tackles, that allows those big explosive plays for Colorado, Nebraska could have a fighting chance. And I think they could have a really good chance on defense if they make that happen. Let's kind of go to the other side of the football. TCU nearly rushed for 300 yards against this Colorado team. TCU rushed for 262 yards against Colorado, and some of those runs were big chunk plays. After one game, you can describe Colorado in a lot of ways: speed, agility, explosiveness, whatever you want to call them. One word that I would not describe Colorado as is physical. And that's exactly what Nebraska needs to do. You need to run the football. The Huskers need to be physical for many different reasons. I think you need to try to avoid Travis Hunter. I think that's one big reason. We know what type of plays he can make on the defensive side of the ball, but I believe actually there's an advantage up front for Nebraska running this football. I thought they ran the ball pretty well against Minnesota. Of course, you had Gabe Ervin Jr., Anthony Grant, even though he put it on the ground late. Jeff Sims, of course, was involved in this quarterback run game. And I don't really trust Jeff Sims throwing the ball that much. I think that's kind of the back half of this, and now you're down those two guys that you were able to resurrect from the Scott Frost era. Remember Xavier Betts, right? They were able to bring him back, but he left the team shortly before the season started. Isaiah Garcia Castaneda is out now due to an ACL injury. That wide receiver room is shrinking. I just don't know if they have the weapons to be able to put it up a ton in this game against Colorado to really lean on that pass game. That's another reason why the run game has to be so well. And then disrupting an up-tempo offense. Sometimes the offense can be the best defense, right? You can disrupt this Colorado up-tempo offense by keeping them off the field, getting them stiff, keeping them cold over there, right? That's a big way where Nebraska, if they could control the time of possession, keep Colorado's explosive offense off the field, that could be a defense in and of itself right there. But the physicality in the run game, I believe Nebraska can really utilize that as well. I talked about the pass game, right? Marcus Washington needs to step up. How about Billy Kemp? We heard some good things out of Billy Kemp. We saw some good things out of Virginia, saw some good things in the spring game, saw some good things in camp. He needs to be more involved. And how about the tight ends? I think you could have some mismatches at tight ends against some safeties and linebackers, whether it's Nate Borkircher. How about Thomas Fedoni? We've been hearing all this time about how good he can be. He's been slow due to injuries, but we've been hearing all this time about how good Thomas Fidone can be. Let's see that. Maybe this is the game where the tight ends are really involved more as well. I believe Matt Rhule actually said as much in his Monday press conference as well throughout this game. But it's the physicality, right? You need to establish that brand as Nebraska football. You need to punch Colorado in the mouth and show this is how this game is going to be played. You kind of got two different styles here, right? Matt Rhule wants to line up. They want to run the ball. They want to be physical. Colorado wants to be flashy. They want to spread it around. They want to get their playmakers in space, and they want to put up a lot of points. So contrast of styles a little bit here between the Nebraska Cornhuskers and the Colorado Buffaloes. This is going to be an exciting matchup, folks, between the Huskers and the Buffaloes. There's going to be a lot of eyeballs on this game. I think if Colorado, or I should say, if Nebraska can get this win, that could completely 180 the narrative after week 1. And then after week 2, if they can beat a team like Colorado, which a lot of people are really high on right now, I think that could spin things the other way for the University of Nebraska. I want to hear what you guys think. How do you see this one going down on Big Noon in Boulder? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching Big Ten TED, where it's all Big Ten all year long. Make sure to like the video to spread the word of Big Ten TED to the masses, and subscribe to the channel for updates on Big Ten content that drops every day.